So here we are in the very first episode of Peak15, I'm really excited about this. The category I've chosen for episode 1 is running, but fitness as well, let's call it that. So we have with us, who better to start in episode 1 than the owner of A1 Performance. That's Adam Lamb. It's great to see you, Adam. Just give me a little bit of background to you and your business and where it's come from. I've watched with admiration over the last few years since you set up, and I've been down to the gym and I've worked with you. So, yeah, give us a bit about yourself.
Okay, so first of all, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, especially on episode number 1. I got out into the fitness industry in 2015. Started out in commercial gyms, did two to 3 years at 2 different commercial gyms, whilst I was building a personal training business on the side.
Yeah.
And then I got to a point where that personal training business developed into something that I wanted to do full time.
Yes.
So then I went into a private gym as a full-time personal trainer, and then we went into lockdown. So everything went quiet in the fitness industry.
Yeah.
Everything became online, which we kind of kept our hand in doing that. But then as we were coming out of the last lockdown in 2021, I found a premises and decided that it was time to bite the bullet and go for it and have my own studio.
Yeah. I've heard that phrase, bite the bullet, a number of times from people who set up businesses either pre or post COVID.
Yeah, right.
And it is biting a bullet, isn't it? But it's also, I think there's pleasure in steering your own ship. How did that feel for you to actually get the keys to your own place and then start making your own rules up?
Yeah, it was fantastic. I think if I was to be honest with myself, it was always the progression that I wanted to make. I've never really been one for standing still. I've always been looking at the next step on the ladder.
Yes.
And that, for me, having my own fitness facility where I can help people achieve the goals under my guidance was always the dream.
Peak15, it's about the passion that people have to achieve in whatever is their particular passion. And I know, Adam, your passion is fitness and well-being. You're doing exactly what you would always have wanted to do, which is great to know. Just tell me how that feels to actually be, doing the things that you love most.
It's a great place to be. I was quite late into fitness. I was about 22, 23, and it was as a result of my dad training for the London Marathon.
Right.
So that was him inviting me to go for one of his training runs with him.
Yes.
One of his shorter distance ones, thankfully. So that was my introduction into endurance training.
Yeah.
And I just developed and progressed from there. But the more training I did, the more running I did, the more I got a taste for that environment,
yes.
The more I wanted to work in it.
Tell me about your relationship with running so far.
So far, it started, like I said, when I was about 22, 23, back in 2007. Did a few short distance runs as training runs, and then I started discovering like 10k races, half marathon races. So I think my first event was actually the Silverstone half marathon.
Right. It's a long distance for a first one, isn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, but when you're young, you're like early 20s, you think you're invincible, don't you? So you go for these things.
Yeah.
I had the support of my dad as well for his London Marathon training. So then, I just got really stuck into it, and I just loved the feeling that running gave me.
Yeah.
I loved the sense of satisfaction. I loved the freedom of it. And then when I started looking at different running events that you could enter, that opened a whole new world of opportunity.
Absolutely. What is it about? Is it the meditation of it when you're out there and you're switched off? How does it benefit you, Adam?
Yeah, interesting you say that, because when I first started running, I always had earphones in, listening to music, and I quite enjoyed that about running then. Anything that would get my adrenaline going. But as I've got later into my years of running, I much prefer just being out in the outdoors.
All right, okay.
In the moment with no music.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting from my perspective. There's a couple of questions I've got for you there. Firstly, how old are you now, Adam?
39.
39. Okay, so you're coming up to 40, which is a milestone. So straight away in your head, you're thinking, okay, 40 is the new 30.
Yeah.
I'm thinking 50 is the new 40. So I turned 50 in July. But I get that there is a point at which it changes your view, it changes your sense of ability, and as well as that, what comes, I find, with age is more injury. Now, one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about is the fact that I've seen on social that at the moment you are coming back from injury, and so am I, and I want to get into that and how that affects your mindset, my mindset when it comes to challenges.
Yeah.
One of the things that we've talked about off camera is the events that we're both aiming for. So tell me a bit about everything that's coming up and how your training plan, which you'll have had however long ago now, months probably, has maybe been shattered and you're having to adjust. Tell me a bit about that, mate.
Yeah, so the ultimate goal is the Lakeland 50 at the end of July this year, which is an ultramarathon foot race starting in Ullswater in the Lake District, finishing in Coniston. So I started the training plan for that in October last year.
I saw that you had an intake of breath then when you said Ullswater to Coniston.
It's quite a distance. I've never done an ultra, so it's a bucket list thing for me. That was my reason for entering. So yeah, the training plan for that started in October. I was following a progressive training plan from a coach, 5 run sessions a week. Rightly or wrongly, I went straight into those 5 run sessions from running maybe 2 to 3 times a week inconsistently prior to October.
Okay. And when you say running inconsistently 2 or 3 times a week, what kind of distance, what kind of pace?
Nothing more than half marathon on a long run. The majority done at an easy pace. So like math, heart rate zone 2. Conversational pace. And then I'd probably throw in like a threshold run or park run. I'd try and achieve a certain time at park run. As a harder session.
So we're then in October. You've got this plan. There's 5 runs a week, different varying degrees of effort in those runs. How long into that before you started to feel, this is increasing things? Are you feeling creaks? How's that?
I was managing that plan pretty well up until January. And I just literally went out for a run. I think it was the threshold interval session, and I felt a shooting pain in the hip joint, which went down into my quad. I was like, God, what is this? Finished that run session, hobbled home, and then the day after I was in agony. Painful to put the left foot down, and then you've just got all that panic and doubt. What is this injury? How am I going to deal with this? And then you just got to take a breath and seek the necessary help from a physio, which is what I did. And so immediately I'm putting myself in your shoes there, which I'm literally in similar shoes at the moment. You immediately feel a sense of a timeline and a looming date and all that plan out the window, and what do I do now to get back to a point where I'm picking up where I left off as soon as possible. That's the thing that kind of crossed my mind as soon as I was injured. I need to be picking up where I left off as soon as possible. Now, the game then is how quickly do you pick back up again? But firstly, did it get diagnosed straight away correctly? No. No, it didn't. Initially, it was diagnosed to be a back issue, like tightness in the back. So we went through some corrective exercises for that, but nothing improved. So then I was referred for a X-ray. And what happened at that point? So this was 4 weeks after the pain, so 4 weeks of no running. You can imagine the anxiety and frustration that was going on, and the self-doubt starting to kick in for this goal at the end of July. I just went through the process with the NHS, got the X-ray done, and I'm waiting to have those results reviewed by a physio.
So we're now almost at the end of March, beginning of April. We're talking only 3 or 4 minutes ago about October, and October was when you started this and you'd made progress through to January. From January when that happened to now has probably in one sense flown by when you think about July, and then on the other hand it's probably been an agonising period of time in which you're just trying to run, having to come back because the pain's still there, you know it's holding you back. It's like a ball and chain, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, so from a mental well-being point of view, how do you respond to that challenge? Because one thing that I've had to do, and I mention this because one of our guests that's coming up, or two of them actually, are the Brig Boys, and I need them down here as soon as possible. You've said you're coming, so get down here. I spoke to Carl Hodgson, and Carl is an incredible runner, and it's all via DM, but he said to me, treat it as a challenge, mate. Treat it as your next endurance challenge. You've got to get fit and you'll be back, you know. And that changed my mindset on it. And it's just the little gains that I can get now through the injury that I'm trying to hold on to.
Yeah.
Tell me about where you're at. You've been on a run. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I ran on Sunday for the first time in 8 weeks. That was relatively comfortable. Still some pain there, but on a scale of 1 to 10, pain management was like a 4.
Okay.
And then I've just done another 5k this morning.
All right. Okay.
Before I came here.
Yeah.
And that was a little bit less pain.
Okay.
So hopefully whatever's going on in the hip is on the mend.
Yes. So we're at the beginning of April. We've got April, May, June, and then the end of July is the event itself.
Yeah.
So we've got 4 months of time, more or less, and we're at 5k. Okay. And when you think about the volume of climbing, when you think about the number of miles to build up, when you think about where you're at in terms of your own confidence with that, tell me how you feel.
My main concern is not having enough time now to condition myself to be on my feet for the length of time that it's going to get me through the 50.
Yeah.
So anywhere between 12 and 16 hours is what I'm expecting to be on my feet for.
Yeah.
It's not just a run race.
No.
I did the recce in January, Ambleside to Coniston, and that was a massive eye-opener.
Yeah.
So it's more of a hike and a scramble with some running in between. That is how I would describe the route and the elevation. So the fact that I've been out for 30 minutes this morning, and to compare that to being on my feet to 12 to 16 hours is a little bit scary. But I am a big believer in there's a lot of mental strength that kicks in with these kind of things, and that's partly why I do endurance events.
Yes.
You can get your fitness level up to a certain point, but there's always going to be a point where you need to switch your mental strength on.
Agreed.
I've got 10 years of endurance racing in me, so I know that I'm aerobically fit. It's just the conditioning in the legs that I really want to build up between now and then. Hopefully I've got time. Yeah,
no, I mean, so with everything that you've just said though, when you think about your experience of being in that place where it's nasty and it's horrible and you're just pushing through, I was always of the opinion that when I'd hear people talking about these types of events, and they'd talk about them in terms of a race. On race day you've got to be and I'm like, I'm not racing, I'm getting round this thing. And that is part of it, of being able to get around it. That's where I'm at in my fitness. I don't look at these types of things and think, if I can get sub 60, if I can get, I don't do that. I want to finish. And so you're in a position where you know your body, you know your experience, you know what pain's like. And so if you can do everything possible between now and race day, then you'll be on the start line and you'll be totally ready in your mind to look after yourself through the race. Just from my point of view as well, with the Lakeland 50, yes, last year was the second time I've done it in 2 years. The first time I was where you are before I got to the start line at this point in time. Quad pain that I couldn't understand, that I couldn't chase out of myself, that I couldn't seem to get right. Within 3 weeks of the race, I was good, and I'd done a couple of 20-milers.
Right.
In comparison to the two runners who were running with me, by the time the race came around, I'd done 220 miles of running that year.
Right.
They'd done 800.
Jeez.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have 10 years on me, a hell of a lot of fitness and endurance experience, and I'm absolutely bomb-proof confident that you'll be there on the start line and that you will be in a position where you're able to complete and probably compete in that completion of it. Test yourself a bit. I use sticks,
which
were a game changer in the recce.
Right.
If you've not done Fusedale, if you've not done from the bobbin mill over Fusedale Head and down to Mardale,
no, I've not.
Do it.
Right.
That would be my aim for you between now and race day,
with
go
the
recce
sticks?
it. Yes.
Would you recommend us? Yeah, right.
Absolutely. Now, if you can, what I would do is I would park at Kentmere and then get to Ullswater from there and do the run one way to Kentmere from Ullswater.
Okay.
That'll give you about a 20-mile section of it, I think. Maybe a little more.
Yeah.
But that's where the climbing is.
Yeah.
Fusedale Head, horrible. Mardale, single track down Haweswater, down the reservoir. To Mardale Head, it is tough because it's just so technically you're concentrating, and it's a longer way than you think.
Yeah.
So that would be the thing for me to do. But I guess from your perspective as well, how do you prepare between now and then? I know you've been in the gym and you've been on the bike.
Yeah.
Where do you feel you are now with the injury in comparison to, and I know you're still waiting for a diagnosis with it, but where do you feel you are now with it?
So I approach these things in stages. So when the injury first happened, I would score it a 9 out of 10 on pain. Yeah. And now, like I said, I'm down to about a 3. Okay. So if I can just gradually build the distance up whilst managing that lower level pain, I'm confident that I can take part in a 26-mile section of the course in June.
Okay.
There's a recce going on in June.
Which one? Where does that take?
I forget the distances for that one.
Okay.
I'm not sure on the start and finish points of that one. Sorry.
It might well be Fusedale, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Hopefully it is. If that's one you recommend me doing.
Yeah.
But so that's like a milestone to get to.
Yeah. Okay.
And if I can tick that off, I'm pretty confident that I can build from there.
Yeah.
And get the damn thing finished.
Super, mate. So, I mean, I don't know about you, but I listened to quite a few podcasts. I was listening to the latest episode of Diary of a CEO yesterday.
Right.
George Heaton was on there, and from Represent, and he was talking about his journey to build the brand.
Yeah.
And just one little snippet of conversation, he said, "You've got to," what was the phrase? I want to do it justice. He said, "The best view of heaven is from hell," right?
Right.
Do you subscribe to that mentality? You know, I mean, if you look at what the British woman did at the Barclay Marathons this week, the thing that drives me is this idea of compulsion.
Yes.
This idea of achievement. What do you feel is the point that you think back on that you've achieved that is driving you forward to achieve this goal?
All the long distance endurance events, but it all started very small. Like my couch to 50 miles could be somebody's couch to 5k.
That's a really good point.
And that's exactly how I started out with endurance. Like that first half marathon that I did was as scary a prospect of what I'm about to take on is today.
Yes.
But over the years of keep chipping away and looking at bigger distances and being patient and gradually working towards them, I'm now where I am and working to do my first ultra. That's
tremendous. I have a friend who I run with who I've been injured, and I'll bang on a bit about it because it's a different injury. It's sciatica. It's a nerve pain. It was brought on after increasing volume and distance and frequency and so on of running, and it started 7 weeks ago now. I can sit down for periods of time now, but I can now feel the nerve pain gnawing into my ankle.
Right.
I've done the Lakeland 50 twice now, 2 years running, and I'm attempting a 62-mile run the week before your 50 this year because I want to do a sub 16 hour 50.
Right.
If I do a sub 16 hour 50, I can qualify for the 100 the year after. I'll be 50 going on 51, and there's something in my head that says I want to be finishing 100 miles by that point. So that's the target that I've got. Yet for the last 6 weeks, in no uncertain terms and without exaggeration, there have been nights when I've not slept a wink, and the burning pain through my leg is beyond description. Really, it's a horrendous thing. You're taking tablets every 2 hours, flip-flopping between ibuprofen, paracetamol, trying gabapentin, trying naproxen, trying different things, none of it really touching the pain, and all of it meaning that there's this ball and chain around my leg. I can't even get on a bike and do any kind of cadence stuff or heart rate stuff because I'm told flexion is going to cause problems with that lumbar spine. However, I'm still hopeful, having had to defer the London Marathon, which this year I qualified for. I got through the ballot to next year. I'm hopeful that I'll still be on the start line for the 62. But this mate of mine, he's been training with his sister, who I run with, Andrew and Julia, and there's a level of guilt that they've got in running,
right?
Because we have a group, and we've named it in WhatsApp Ultra Again.
Yeah,
Ultra Again, again and again. And for 3 years now, they'll be on the start line, fit as fleas, younger than me. But Andrew will say to me, I'll say to him, how was your run this weekend? And he'll have gone up Great Hill, and he'll have gone over Spittler's Edge and Lancashire Way and testing himself on those climbs. And he'll say, mate, it feels like I'm running on the edge of the world.
Yeah.
You know, absolutely loving what he's doing.
Yeah.
And at the weekend, I'm lying on the sofa because I can't sit for any length of time. And he wandered in, looked at me, and I was almost in tears.
Were you?
And he was like, mate, give me a hug, you know. And then as he came down and leaned into me, he said, doing the Yorkshire Three Peaks tomorrow. And I was like, holy shit, thanks for that. So yeah, so you've got to laugh, haven't you?
Yeah.
And you've got to kind of hope that there are little gains that you can make every day to get you to the point where you're going to be on that start line.
Where do you feel you're going to go from where you are then with your injury?
I'm terrified. I'm terrified of the process I'm going to have to go through now to get myself to the 12th of July, because I know the climbing, I know the elevation, I know what it feels like at 28 and 30 and 36, hips, knees, you know. But I guess I know the terrain.
Yeah.
And that is a big thing. I wanted to mention that to you, actually, Adam, that those recce's will allow you to protect yourself.
Yeah.
Because you know the time that you're going to be climbing for.
Mm-hmm.
You know how steep it is. It's muscle memory. It's in there. So I think to get on Fusedale and feel that and know that on Bampton Common, you're like, which way now?
Yeah.
I know the way now. Navigate it yourself. Come down to Haweswater Reservoir and know which way you're going on, because there's some really treacherous bits down there as well where the thing with the recce's I found is you're running them, there's no fern, there's no undergrowth, because you're running early in the year, and then you get to the actual event, sometimes you can't see the path ahead of you. So that I've found that the sticks were great because you're pushing fern to one side and seeing where you step in and seeing where the ankle breakers are and all the rest of it. So I think that is a really key point. I know I've digressed from your question, but it's all part of the answer. I think the answer is little by little now. I can remember doing a piece to camera this time last year, more perhaps towards June, where I actually reached out to someone, I'll not mention who. He's another chap who does a lot of physical conditioning and has a gym and has done for years. And I said to this guy on video, I said, I'm asking you a question genuinely here. How do you get yourself to a point where you believe you can achieve something when you know at the moment you're nowhere near that mark? Let me ask you that question. How the hell do you get yourself to a point where you can believe you'll do it? When you know right now that you're nowhere near it? It's a terrifying prospect, but it does. It for me personally, and I can't speak for you, but I'm sure you'll agree with me. That drives you.
Yeah, it does, absolutely. And I think when you start tapping into long distance endurance, you have that ability to break things down into smaller pieces.
Absolutely.
Nobody sets out to run 50 miles.
No.
You run your first mile and your first 5k. Time on your feet increases. You do it in small chunks, don't you?
You do indeed, mate. Yeah, you really do. I think that is a really good thing to take into it. You know, that idea of like, okay, so I'm 6 miles in and I'm comfy. I'm warm, I'm bouncing.
Yeah.
And I'm just starting.
Yeah.
But I'm going to get that to 10. The next 4, let's eat that.
Yeah.
You know, the thing with the recce's, when you go from Dale Main Estate and you get through Pooley Bridge and you've got all those crowds around you, and then you start climbing and you see Ullswater and you've got that view as you're running along the top edge of that. I'm going the Bobbin Mill, and I know the next section is Fusedale to Haweswater. Oh shit. But when you know that you're comfortable at that point, and then you get over Fusedale and you're on Bampton Common and you're looking down on Haweswater, you've achieved 2 milestones at that point then. Gatescarth Pass, which is the one from Mardale Head that climbs you over and then down to Kentmere, that's a little bitch. That's a little bitch. And you get in all kinds of weather.
Yeah.
So I genuinely think that your point about just, right, under my belt, that's done. I'm done and I feel good. I'll tell you the point at which the sticks became something that I found really, really useful. It was on Gatescarth Pass. Right. The first time I got there. So I'm at Haweswater Reservoir and I've got Gatescarth ahead of me. I bought these Black Diamond poles, carbon poles, and I got them out the bag. And I thought, you know, I've run all this way, you know, and I've climbed and I've fell hiked and all the rest of it. What do I want to? Anyway, I got them out the bag, unfolded them, and banged them in the floor and started. And I was like, holy shit!
First time you'd used them?
That was the first time I'd used them.
Right.
And I'm going up Gatescarth Pass like this. Wow! And there was high wind. There's a big turnstile gate, big, heavy. I mean, it's massive, this gate. Anyone who's done the 50 will know it. And what you've got to do is you've got to push the gate, go into the gap between and let it come back on it, and then you go through. But it's a big gate, and the wind was blowing against it. So I got up to it and I'm thinking, my God, I'm going to be up Gatescarth in no time with these things. Whipped into the gate, pushed it open against the wind, got myself in the gap between, and it slipped out of my hand, slammed shut onto the right hand pole and shattered the right hand carbon pole. A carbon pole, shattered it. I've only got one
single stick.
and I'm going. I've got the majority of Gatescarth to get up, but even that one pole, and the point I make, even that one pole made a difference. Made a massive difference. Yeah. So, and it's just the same on the downhills. You find with those carbon tips, tungsten tips on them, they don't slip. Yeah. So you can confidently just pick and take that weight off yourself on the downhill as well. Yeah. For me, with the knees that I've had over the last few years, that impact that it cushioned for me, it probably is the reason I got round. If I'm completely honest,
that was the one of the shocks that I had when I did Ambleside to Coniston in January. The pain in my knees the day after. Not so much at the time. I felt the impact going down, but like going up Jacob's Ladder, it's like doing 200 box step-ups, isn't it?
It is.
And then you get to the top of there and it levels out, and then you start to run downhill having doing all that climbing. Yeah, that is phenomenal pressure through your legs, isn't it? Through your knees.
It certainly is, and especially when, think about it, you'll be doing that in the dark, probably coming into the night. Yeah. Hopefully it'll be early in the evening when you're going up over Jacob's Ladder. Wasn't for me. No. First time round, I think I got into Coniston at sort of 8 o'clock in the morning. It was a long run. Right. I think I was 19 hours, my finish time. Right. First time. Second time, 16:30. Yeah. So I knocked a hell of a lot off with course knowledge. Course knowledge, I think, and confidence. Yeah. Because I trusted myself and I knew where I could push on and where I couldn't. Yeah. Whereas first time, I'm getting round this. Yeah. I'm very careful with it, very conservative at each checkpoint. Yeah. Whereas I wasted no time in checkpoints this time, and I pushed. I
Yeah.
pushed myself. So Jacobs at night, you
Yeah.
know, if you've done it in the day,
I've not. When we
You
did
did
the
it at
rec in
night, did you?
January, we set off at 4 p.m.
right?
purposely to experience it at that
Yes.
time of day.
Yeah.
The weather, Stuart, was biblical. I've been out in some horrendous conditions, but that I'll take to the grave. I'll never forget it, honestly, mate. Sideways hailstone. There was ice underfoot, pitch black. The wind was phenomenal.
The thing about that is
It
you're
was
climbing.
brutal, mate, honestly. And you're going up a path that's like as wide as your hips, and you've got a drop by your side.
Absolutely.
And for some reason, I kept pointing my head torch down the drop, but I was terrifying myself doing it. I was like, why are you doing this? Just keep your focus forward. Slipped on my ass 3 times. I was piss wet through. I was thinking, it can't be like this in July. that was the only saving grace, to think, yeah, all right, I'm doing this in January. The weather, I can accept this weather.
Yeah, I mean that is character building stuff.
Yeah, it was absolutely.
There's part of that climb where you actually scramble and it becomes very narrow, and there's a ravine.
Yeah.
With a tree that's growing out of that ravine, and you've got to cross it and trust your balance and all that, and get up and over that.
Yeah.
And it is sheer to your right at that point. If you stick your head torch down there, especially if it was raining like that, the runoff would have been incredible as well.
Yeah.
Well, in July, Gatescarth this time, my waterproof running jacket, hood up, pulled tight, hailstone sideways.
Yeah.
July, you know, so you will get a bit of everything.
Yeah, anything. That's the Lake District for you, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not expecting a bright sunny day for the whole of it, but hopefully it won't be as bad as what it was in January.
Talking about the actual event, talking about the build up to it, get yourself on that start line, mate, because Coniston on the Friday is buzzing, mate. It's absolutely buzzing. I'm hoping Carl Hodgson from Brig Boys and Steve they're going to bring some tales about their time on the 50.
Yeah, right.
Carl did the 100 as well.
Wow.
So he's hoping to bring Mark Laithwaite in, and we'll have a chat with him about
cool.
the whole event. But the atmosphere there, mate, is incredible. It is a family. You feel part of it immediately, even on your first go at it. So yeah, I'm wishing you all the very best, mate. If I can be there the week after, the 12th, if I've survived that, then I'll be there and support you, mate.
Great,
yeah,
thank you for that. That'd be brilliant.
Brilliant. It's been great chatting to you.
Yeah, likewise.
And I'd love to, as I say, get you in to talk about A1 performance and everything that you're doing.
Okay.
We'll do that in the near future, mate.
Yeah. All right.
Good stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you.